Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth and my colleagues on City Council. I want to welcome everyone to our special call meeting on this first day of spring, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel?
Present.
Mrs. Lucasberg? Here. Mr. Moody? Here. Mr. Tillage?
Here.
Dr. Whitaker?
Present.
Mayor Glover?
Here. Madam Clerk, excuse me. Madam City Manager, are you ready?
I am ready.
You have the floor, ma'am.
I saw my chief somewhere. Okay. Good evening. This is a call meeting, and we will be discussing crime. I guess we can start with, we have two segments to this. I want to start with the 911 information system, a quick status update, and that will be provided by our IT director, Mr. Hayes.
Good evening, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Interim City Manager, members of council. To provide you with a quick update where we are, I just wanted to let you know with the project, obviously, looking back over time, we have had, just to give you a brief historical perspective with it, I have found notes detailing where this has started back in 2018. And so we found ourselves moving through this process to this point now. And the solution that we have actually is a three-pronged approach. There are three pieces to the puzzle. There is EZNet through AT&T, which actually is done as a part of a process going nationwide as across the Commonwealth of Virginia when it comes to 911 and upgrading the technology that goes with it. There's a contract that's been awarded to Fairfax County, and through that contract there's cooperative language that allows other localities to actually ride off of that to implement their next-gen 911 technologies in their locality. The other piece is the actual recording. So our recording technology needed to be upgraded as well, and that's not uncommon or puts us as an outlier by no means. All of the localities across the Commonwealth are upgrading their recording as well. And then the critical piece, well, all of it's critical, but at the core of it all, that actually will drive the critical path for its completion is Vesta. And that's another product of Motorola. So your recording piece, as well as the Vesta software, will all technology will all work in concert. That process for completion of the Vesta will take anywhere, talking to the company, from 4 to 9 months. There is a window of 4 to 9 months. On the good end, we'll come in with that 9 months. But we just wanted to let you know, because of other matters, supply chain issues, et cetera, it's built into the process that we would be able to come within that 9 months. Also, to give you, in terms of phases, what that looks like. So phase 1 will be on-site gathering of data and information and how our processes work here with our employees in our 911 center. And so the company will come in and sit down with our staff and gather that information and data. Then, of course, that phase will also include programming equipment and staging equipment at the company's headquarters as the equipment is coming in Chicago. They'll be prepping it from their perspective of programming the equipment. And then the next phase of installation, they will continue that programming to our specifications in our environment here. And so they'll be staging the equipment there and then shipping the equipment. That's all in phase 2. And then finally in phase 2 is they will show up after shipping the equipment, and we have through IT received that equipment. They will then begin connecting the equipment and testing the equipment. That equipment, as I said before, has to work in concert with EZNet, the product through AT&T as well. So then they'll begin that process of testing with EZNet as well. Phase 3 comes right after that, and that would include the testing. And the testing, the training. Phase 3 is training. And the training will be direct training. It won't be the type of training that you get sometimes where they say train the trainers. They'll be actually training our personnel in the 911 center directly, fully training them on all of the features of the software. And then, of course, we'll go live. One part of the phasing process that I did not mention just yet, because I wanted to let you know where we are now going forward. Well, because we started this process before and communicating and pushing on the vendors, they have literally, Motorola ordered much of the equipment that we were going to need with this process. So instead of waiting until this point, they've already begun starting ordering our equipment and so forth. So that should incorporate or include any slack when it comes to equipment coming in and delays because of any supply chain issues. So we should not, for any reason, have to go outside of that 9 months of delivery. And that concludes my remarks with regards to the updates and where we are with it.
Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Hayes. It sounds like a lot of activity going on, a lot of good things in the works to update this system. But in the meantime, I'm very concerned with people simply answering a 911 call. And there was a good example of what happens a couple weeks ago. An attorney in our city walking to lunch got assaulted, and some people called 911. It's my understanding that no one answered. The call ended up in Norfolk. Norfolk people called back to Portsmouth, finally got someone. So while all these parts are en route and training is on the horizon, are we going to still experience 911 calls not being answered?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Moody, I'll just say that this is a process, and as I started out mentioning, we're not an outlier with some of these issues that are going on with calls. And if I just rewind back to my first meeting here, when that was a strong conversation going on with City Council in this regard, the same regard, and even until today, there are many variables involved that actually put us in the posture of a delayed, a missed, or unanswered call. And so I heard you just now mention how Norfolk literally picked that call up, and the individual was walking along downtown. That is all a part of this upgrade and what the state, across the state, this implementation is actually going to solve some of those issues. When it comes to also no answer, I would say, I'm not sure if that was a ring that just went on forever or the individual decided to hang up because there was no immediate answer. And there are technical issues that could drive either. For instance, today, away from City Hall in downtown, if you happen to be somewhere in the city else other than downtown and you dial 911 from your cell phone, because of the technology and the type of lines that we have coming in and to our PSAP, you will get a delay before the phone begins to ring. That delay might be upwards of 9 seconds or so. If you call from a landline, we've discovered, and I've witnessed and tested, that that delay might be roughly 5 seconds. 9 seconds or 5 seconds to some may not seem to be a lot, but under a certain situation, that can feel like an eternity. I understand that. But again, it is not uncommon because of the technology that all needs to be upgraded, and because of this initiative nationally, going back to what I'm finding like 2005 to 8 or so, there's been a push for the upgrade of technology in 911 centers. And since 2018, the Commonwealth has set up guidelines that all localities should be following. When it comes to, for instance, your mentioning of Norfolk getting that call, through this, these 3 solutions that we're implementing now, there will be better interoperability between our jurisdictions. If a call actually had gone to Norfolk under these terms, once we get it implemented, then they can simply just very quickly transfer the call within the same system. And that will cut down on some of the delays, so to speak.
Well,
Sorry for the long answer, but
that doesn't give me any level of comfort, and I don't think it gives any of our citizens any level of comfort that they got to wait until somebody answers the phone. You know, when you call 911, it's not like you can, you're calling it to get the latest weather report. You're calling it because your butt is probably endangered, as this gentleman's was. And a bystander trying to assist called 911 right here on High Street, and no one answers. And even before technology, people used to answer a phone. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm not so concerned with technology all over the nation than I am concerned about someone answering a 911 call here in Portsmouth. So we've got to offer some change where those calls will be answered even before this technology hits town. We can't wait. That's got to be fixed. And there's got to be a way that we can put a Band-Aid on it or something before all this equipment and all this new technology hits town. Do you agree?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Moody, I'll say it is a priority, just like we understand it's council's priority, it's our interim manager's priority, it's my priority. Having worked in the municipal government side of things, and many of you know from a state perspective, I operate, as well as over 25 years in municipal government and technology and public safety. And as a citizen, I get it. And we're doing all we can to make sure that these issues be put to rest.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hugo, then Councilman Tillage.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Hayes, for the brief. So you mentioned there are 3 pieces to this install. There's an AT&T piece, there's something in the middle that I missed, and there's a Motorola piece. Is the 9 months that Motorola needs to do their phases 1, 2, and 3, is that the long pole in the tent? Everything else is happening in parallel so that when Motorola gets ready to install the equipment. All the AT&T stuff is done, all of the, whoever this other person is, their stuff's done. And so 9 months from now, we should have state-of-the-art 911.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Hugo, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, so then let me pile on to Councilman Moody's question, and this might not be a question for you because you own the technology piece of this, but Chief Magabut owns the dispatchers and the responders. Chief Jenkins owns the responders. We just had a citizen ask via FOIA for some 911 response data. There were some interesting things in there. For instance, number of calls received, that's kind of an interesting thing. There wasn't anything in there, I don't believe, on numbers of calls that didn't go through or weren't answered, because we don't know how to answer that question in data collection. You don't know if you missed a call. But we have enough anecdotal information from folks stepping up to that microphone over just the time I've been sitting up here and complaining to Councilman Moody's point. They made a call and they didn't get an answer, or they made a call and they waited 30 minutes and there was no response. I wonder, Madam City Manager, if we ever follow up on those incidents to dig into what happened. So the incident that Councilman Moody points to, okay, we have a specific person and people that were trying to respond to that specific incident. We should call those people in with the chief and Mr. Hayes and say, okay, let's figure out what happened, because none of us knows what happened except somebody made a phone call, nobody answered the call, and eventually it got flipped over to Norfolk, and Norfolk had to do something on our behalf. We got enough anecdotal stuff that if we just pursue half of what we've heard about from folks standing at the microphone, we can probably uncover how much of this stuff is going to get fixed when we have state-of-the-art 911. Here's my fear. My fear is we put a brand new 911 state-of-the-art system in, and we still don't fix the problem because we don't know what the other problems are. I'll give you an example. One of the pieces of data in that FOIA example was from the response, or the time it takes for a dispatcher to pass the call to the fire department or to pass the call to the police department. Well, it turns out that in the data, it says on average, it takes a dispatcher 20 minutes to pass a call to the police department. Now, should we be satisfied with 20 minutes to pass a call? I'm not satisfied, and I'm pretty sure nobody out here is going to be happy about that either. But none of us knows why. Is it because there's nobody on the police department telephone to answer the call? I doubt it. I'm sure there's somebody there to answer the call. Does the dispatcher not know the phone number to call? I doubt it. Surely they know the phone number to call, but none of us in the room knows why that says it's 20 minutes on average from the time a dispatcher gets a police call until the dispatcher notifies the police department. So until we dig into some of this stuff, again, my fear is we're going to put a brand new state-of-the-art system in place, and we're still going to have issues where we're not responding in a timely fashion to 911 calls, and we're going to be sitting here 9 months and a day from today looking at each other like, how did we let this happen? Because we haven't asked ourselves, what are the process questions that are keeping us from being responsive on 911? Now, so back to Councilman Moody's question. So Mr. Hayes, is there any technology Band-Aids that we need to install on the current 911 system to help us get through the next 9 months better off than we are today? And if the answer to that is, I don't know, that's an okay answer. The answer might be, I don't know, because we haven't stepped back to take a look at what isn't getting through And is it because the technology isn't working? Is it because the people aren't properly trained? We don't know what the answer is, but I don't know is an okay answer if that's your answer. And then the question, Madam City Manager, is I don't know isn't an answer that we should put up with. We need to pull the right people together, sit them down in the room and figure out what the heck's going on. I'm done.
Well, gee, thanks. So the thing is, I recognize, we understand. Again, we're getting back in the routine of addressing the issues. These things were under the previous IT. We have a new person who is working with us to get those things done. Since I've been back in January, we have made some instrumental changes, and we're moving forward. I can tell you we're working forward. Is that going to be the answer to solve the problems that we're addressing and facing now? Absolutely not. All I can tell you is we are dedicated to getting this done, because one thing that we want to do is keep our families safe, but we just have to have the time to do it. Things have changed since he came. Things have changed since he came before the council in October or November. The state did away with the program, so we had to start over with a whole new contract. Things have come up, but it has not stopped us from moving forward. There are some things that Chief Manuback could provide, but you want to see results. So it's time for that to stop talking. And so what we're doing is going to give you results. In the meantime, we will continuously provide you with updates. And even if we have to bring it back to council, just as far as our 5 o'clock public work session, just to keep people in the loop of what we're doing, that's not a problem. It takes 5 or 10 minutes. I think the more the questions is kind of what takes up the time, but you want to know. And I think it's fair for all of you to feel upset that you're being faced with citizens having these concerns and problems. But we didn't get here last night. But we're fighting to get it done with so our citizens can feel comfortable, so our citizens can feel safe. And again, this is one piece of the big puzzle. And what I'll have is our next presentation will be Chief Jenkins, who will provide and shed some light on some other things, because it all works together. And I just didn't want to beat the IT director up, because he's really making, he's helping to move things along.
And I tried to be very careful not to beat anybody up. I'm
there's
not looking to place blame on anybody. I'm just looking to understand what's going on so that we can figure out how to fix it.
And that's fair. And we all are, you know.
And so
That's fair.
we all are. We all want it better. We just want it better faster, which is part of the reason that we're here tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Tillage,
I think
then
so.
Vice Mayor Lucasberg.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to, first of all, echo everything that Councilman Hugel just mentioned. My biggest concern in Portsmouth is it seems like we don't have ways to measure things, or we don't have timelines. And so you made mention that the process would take up to 9 months, which is fair and understandable. My concern is, when does that 9 months start? As to city manager's point, this is something that was brought up under a previous administration, but we were told similar things then. And here we are months later, probably 9 months later, and we still don't have a system in place. Yet we're still seeing crime being done, yet we're still getting 911 calls that are going unanswered or being redirected elsewhere. And to my colleague's point, it's not about bashing, it's how we're going to find solutions, and how we're going to find solutions that are tangible. And we can't, as a council, there's no way possible that we can develop a strategy or a plan or do what's necessary if we're not provided tangible results or measurements. And that is something that I really am looking forward to, hopefully this council holding true to that, is making sure that we're getting information in a timely fashion. 4 years is a length of a term. 4 years is not a long time. And I don't want to spend a whole quarter of my term talking about a 911 system, or just talking about other issues. Portsmouth, we have a lot of issues that Portsmouth really needs to address, and just working on it is just not sufficient to me. We need results that are going to be measurable, that the citizens can feel. Because at the end of the day, these numbers, I mean, these crime numbers are just, and I know this is not you. This is just me venting right now. These crime numbers are out of this world. I mean, we're looking at homicides right now. We are already at 40% of last year's homicides, and we're only 25% into the year. That's a problem. And so hopefully we can really start to make a difference when it comes to asking for measurable results here and having timelines established. Because I don't want to come back here in 3 months from now and we're saying, well, it's a supply chain issue or X, Y, and Z. I mean, this is an issue that we've been talking now for years. I mean, you may mention that this was a 2018. That's 5 years ago. 5 years ago, and we're still in the same predicament, if not worse, some may say, than we were 5 years ago. And so I'm going to go off on my rant right now because I think Councilman Hugel did a really good job of expressing my concerns. But I'll yield my time.
Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hayes, for the presentation. Being an old IT gal, I understand what you and your department are faced with, so I appreciate the information that you brought back to us. But this is my second year of my second term, and we've talked about 3 different systems in 2 years. Shot spotter, and then a fuchsia system, and now this Vassar system. So just helping me to help the citizens to understand, is the Vassar system just the IT part of the fuchsia system, or is this all working together to help us to identify a system that's going to help us to track the calls and the crime and the shots and all of that? Just trying to understand. Yeah.
Excuse me, Vice Mayor, what we're discussing now is related to the 911. When Chief Jenkins comes up, he's going to update us as to what all of those things are and what they are in the process of doing. So
Okay.
This
So
is
just
really
the-
dealing with the 911.
Just the IT
Yes.
part? Okay. And the Vassar system, of course, being in 3 phases, do we have any costs relative to what this is going to, cost us in budget, or do we know that?
Fortunately, council put money aside to cover the increase in costs that we have with technology associated with updating technology. So you all took care of that. Any additional costs that we see outside of what you've already allocated, will be coming forward with that. But we have budgeted for that for '24, for any subscriptions that's going to come with the upgrade in the system, any new implementations, and any upgrades. So we're covered with costs.
Okay. All right. All right.
And if I might, Mr. Manager.
You have the floor, sir.
Madam Interim Manager, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Lucas Burke. A portion of it, as I mentioned, there were 3 legs to the stool. A portion of it, the EZNet, which AT&T is actually doing that implementation, the city gets reimbursed from the state. Because as I mentioned before, this is a statewide initiative that the standards have been set that localities around the Commonwealth have to upgrade their technology and find a solution to these problems that they're having. And so a portion of it, when it comes to EZNet, and that the portion of the project that's handled by AT&T, that you will be reimbursed for.
And so this Vassar system is what we have currently, and we're upgrading to the newest technology of it?
So Vesta
Vesta.
is one of the 2 products that Motorola is involved with this switch. The Vesta technology, and then you have the recording, which is called NICE. NICE recording and Vesta are Motorola products.
Okay.
And the Vesta portion of it, as I mentioned before, is going to be the core or critical piece. Getting back to probably a piece that Council Member Tillage mentioned about timelines, I just want to say, we have set and mentioned 4 to 9 months for a reason. 9 is the extreme, right? The way I operate, I like to underpromise and overdeliver. So I'll give you that 9 months because that's what the vendors are saying the extreme is. But there's also a possibility that within that 4-month time frame, much of this will be done. We're doing this in a synchronized fashion simultaneously so that all of it will come together at time of fruition.
And the clock starts ticking on,
My report is starting from now.
okay.
That's what I was mentioning before, that from this point forward, 4 to 9 months. But I also mentioned that there was a pre-phase to all of this where we are now. We've been working so diligently that much of the equipment that ordinarily wouldn't start to be ordered until now, weeks ago, we've already had the vendors on top of it and ordering the equipment, and that stuff is coming into their Chicago location even now.
Well, I appreciate the information because we weren't even aware before that we needed 2 parts, that we had an IT part that needed to go in place and be set up before we began with the other spot shotter, fuchsias, whatever our system is today that we're going to have. So I appreciate the information and the update.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Hugel, did you have one more question?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thanks for giving me my nickel back. So if it's the pleasure of my colleagues, I'd like to ask the city manager if we could get that 5-minute update once a month over the next 4 to 9 months. And it can be as easy as ahead of schedule, on schedule, behind schedule, and if it's behind schedule, it might take more than 5 minutes.
And that's fair. That's fair because we actually have our timeline set where we meet every couple of weeks to stay on status. So I will absolutely provide. Now, the question is, do you want it to council or do you want that's just a 5-minute presentation during one of our public work sessions?
Yeah, I'd say 5 minutes during the monthly work session
Okay.
to update everybody on how we're doing.
That's fair. Thank you.
Very good. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Manager, you have the floor.
Now I would like, Chief Jenkins will be presenting a crime update.
And if I could ask my colleagues on council to allow the chief to go through the proposal, and then certainly he will be available and his team will be available for questions and answers. Is that okay with everyone? Thank you. Chief, sir, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Mrs. Terry, citizens of Portsmouth. As I sat back and listened to the information that was given to you, there are a lot of things I can say. There are a lot of fingers that can be pointed, but we've done enough of that. The 911 system, as it stands, is my responsibility to ensure that it is up, running in a manner that is acceptable to the citizens of Portsmouth. It is my responsibility to ensure that that happens, and I will make sure that it happens. One of the issues that we have, in addition to an old and antiquated system, is the fact that we struggle with manpower to fully staff the 911 system. The fire chief and I are going to work out a plan to get some additional individuals to work in that capacity, whether it be injured individuals, walking wounded, or volunteers. The system will be fixed. Before as I go into my crime update, I'm going to attempt to provide as much detail to you as possible on the information that is at hand. Obviously, as the mayor said, I would ask that you hold your questions, but I'll try to give you as much insight into your questions. When we discuss crime, one of the things that constantly comes up is the fact that what we see here today is a response to many and many years of not only neglect, poor policies, poverty, poor schools, and by design. So this did not happen overnight. And regardless of what we do today as a city, we are going to struggle with getting out of this situation. However, there is light at the tunnel, end of the tunnel, because we are committed as a team to addressing our issues head on and understanding what those issues are. So, topics that I'm going to discuss with you today is obviously our entire numbers of 2022, what we ended up the year on, in addition to our numbers for a year to date from January 1 until today's date, our current homicides, along with obviously our numbers from last year, the number of firearms stolen from 2022, our recruitment and staffing, new initiative updates, what we're doing as a police department, and then I'll accept questions. So as of the end of the year, 2022, we ended with a total of in violent crime of 16% increase. Obviously, we had 42 homicides with 39 incidents, and the way that the way that is calculated is one homicide is calculated as one incident regardless of how many victims are associated with it. So if you had a homicide and there were 4 individuals, it still counts as one incident. When we go to our property crimes, we had a overall, we had a 28% increase in property crimes. One of the driving forces for our property crimes obviously was larceny from motor vehicle and larceny from motor vehicle parts, to include catalytic converters and individuals leaving their car doors unlocked, items being stolen from the inside of their vehicles, burglaries, and burglaries to vacant dwellings. Overall, we ended the year with a 26% increase. As we transcend into 2023, obviously at this point, and we'll go into the actual homicide numbers, but obviously at this point, we're at 13 incidents of homicide with 16 victims. I'm sorry, 14 incidents of homicide with 16 victims. We have implemented a number of measures to increase our presence within the community, to include all hands patrols, where every single person, if they have the ability to put on a uniform, hits the streets. That includes myself. You see us out doing patrols, not only within the neighborhoods, checkpoints, traffic stops, you name it, we're doing what we can in regards to that. Our traffic stop initiative is not so much in the realm of enforcement, but more so in the realm of visibility and education. It is more of us being seen within the community, and obviously it is the officer has the option to make it an educational moment based on the individual's violation, or issue that individual a summons to address their behavior. As I move forward into our property crimes, currently we're at a 3% increase year to date. Again, our driving number is burglary to vacant and abandoned buildings, in addition to burglaries to sheds, and also larceny from motor vehicle parts. One of the things that legislators have put forth through the state is to make purchasing of catalytic converters legally a felony in an effort to to calm that growing industry. The catalytic converters are cut out of vehicles for their metal and sold on the black market per se around the state and in North Carolina, and so it has made a black market for them. And as you have seen throughout the region, it only takes about 30 seconds or less to jack a vehicle up and steal a catalytic converter. Oftentimes, these are hard offenders to catch. However, when we do catch them, they're usually associated with some sort of ring that is operating throughout the region. As of today, again, we have 16 victims of homicide. One of the things I need to take an opportunity to say is that, and I'm going to attempt as much as possible to be respectful of the families, but I want to be truthful to the circumstances of these individuals and how they were killed. Our first homicide of the year occurred on 2900 block of Elm Avenue. That was a party that a person was attending, and as of this time, there is no known reason associated with that particular death. The second one that occurred on Turnpike Road was the result of an argument, basic conflict resolution. The next one that occurred at the bar on Town Point Road started as a bar fight inside of the establishment, an argument which led to that person being killed in the parking lot. The fourth that occurred on Newport Avenue, we're unsure but believe it possibly is related to a retaliatory incident involving this individual and his previous lifestyle. The fifth one occurred on Nashville Avenue. It was a drug-related deal that involved two individuals. That occurred on Nashville Avenue again, and the individuals actually have been arrested at this point. The sixth one that occurred on Loxley was a result of a robbery. That robbery was associated with some other activities that were known throughout the neighborhood that were being conducted at that residence. The seventh one occurred on Cedar Lane. Again, that involved a juvenile attending a party, and at this time it is unknown as to the results or the reasons why that took place. The next one occurred on Dunedin Road. That is a result of two neighbors disputing over loud music. One neighbor refusing to turn the music down and conflict resolution. An arrest is made in that case. The ninth one occurred on Gimmelton Avenue, and at this point in time, we have no known reason for that homicide. The 10th one occurred on LaSalle Avenue, and is a result of an argument over a girl. The 11th one occurred on Victory Boulevard, and at this time it is unknown as to the reasons why this homicide was perpetrated. The 12th one that occurred on Allard Road, where an innocent 22-year-old woman was killed inside of her house with a bullet flying through the wall was believed to be as a result of two vehicles that were involved in a shootout with possible gang relations. The next one that occurred on Dale Drive was drug-related and it also involved a female. There are currently warrants out for that individual, those individuals associated with that homicide. And the last one that occurred on Frederick Boulevard was drug-related, associated with marijuana. I go over these 14 incidents to educate not only you, counsel, but the public, because there is this misconception that we have a gang war and that everything is associated with gang violence. We do have gangs in this city. However, every incident that we have is not related to that. Our basic and most difficult thing for us to wrap our minds around is how an argument escalates to the point where somebody chooses to pull a gun and take an individual's life as if it had no meaning. These incidents, whether full staffed, are difficult to stop without prior knowledge by the police department or someone intervening and calling prior to it happening. And I want to make that clear so that everybody understands, because oftentimes when we have these conversations about homicides, we act as if there is some type of way that law enforcement could have prevented it. In order for that to happen, we would have to be psychic. One of the bright spots that I do want to highlight is that the men and women of the Portsmouth Police Department and the detectives assigned to the homicide unit continue to work feverishly to bring these cases and the family some level of closure. As a result, at this day and time, the homicides for 2022, we're at 71% clearance rate, which is above the national average of 61.4%. I'm also want to say that the one that we most recently have, I expect to be able to provide a positive update on, hopefully before I leave today. One of the things that contribute to our homicides is the ample amount of firearms that are in our streets. 2022, we had 198 firearms stolen out of vehicles. Most of those vehicles were left unlocked. And I must ask, beg, implore, that if you must leave a firearm inside your vehicle, please do everything you can to secure it. And if nothing else, lock your doors. Because these firearms on the street, if you notice when we check our neighborhood apps and ring cams and things of that nature, we know that our young people are walking around just checking car doors with looking for firearms, targeting police, targeting military, because they know there's a higher probability that their firearms may be inside of the vehicle. So again, I implore you to please, if you must leave your firearm in a vehicle, secure it and lock your door. Moving forward to staffing. Currently, the Portsmouth Police Department has 88 sworn vacancies within the department. We have 19 civilian vacancies. We are hiring. Anybody that's looking for a job, we are hiring. The city currently offers a $1,000 referral bonus for applicants who are referred by police officers, and a $500 bonus to any citizen or city employee who refers a person who is hired as a police recruit. This is an incentive for anybody. If you're looking and know someone who's looking for a job or a career change, please have them consider to be members of the Portsmouth Police Department. Be the change that you want to see within your community. Currently, we have 5 individuals in field training. These individuals have already completed the basic academy and are going through field training. Unfortunately, we started out with 8. We also have 12 individuals currently in the Hampton Roads Regional Academy. Those individuals are about halfway through the academy. Unfortunately, we started with 15. So I highlight that to say that every person, even if they're hired, it does not guarantee that they will stay or cut the mustard to do this job. Please understand that there are a lot of other places. Every city, every state is hiring police officers. As I was having a conversation at one of my recent civic leagues, I made a note to have a conversation with the individual about his words and how they matter. Citizens, please understand that this job is already tough. We understand your frustrations. I'm frustrated too from time to time. When you're operating a department that's already at a deficit and probably works harder than any department in Hampton Roads, by far, call volume, situations, and then you have an individual or individuals take to social media out of frustration, understandably, and attack the police officers' integrity for whatever reason. What that does is already take an individual that's already on the fence about staying and say, why not take my talent somewhere else where at least I can be appreciated? I implore you, again, if you're frustrated, call me. I'm the person that's responsible. I will address the situation, but please allow us the opportunity to fix these issues within this department. We did not get here overnight. Currently, we are on a nationwide recruitment effort to attract qualified candidates. The governor, along with the Department of Criminal Justice Services, came up with a program called Option 5. Option 5 encourages certified individuals, even out of state, to come to Virginia and go through an abbreviated police academy where they can obtain certification. This is an 8-week academy. For many folks that are looking to transition from other states, the police academy is often a big hang-up for individuals, especially those who have been in policing for some time. So this right here has the potential of being a very good program for us. Currently, individuals that are seeking to go to the academy, Virginia Beach is the academy of choice at this point. All right, I'll go over new initiatives and updates. So for months now, we've talked about technology that was coming to Portsmouth. This technology, obviously, for us is looked at as a force multiplier, especially when staffing levels are at the numbers of which they are. So as a city and a police department, we have invested in a number of technologies that include flock cameras that employ license plate readers. Those license plate readers and cameras currently will link our city with other cities who are employing the same technology. Currently, Chesapeake and Suffolk both have that technology, and if you've ridden around, say, College Drive, parts of Harborview, parts of Chesapeake, you may have seen that particular apparatus sitting in the median or attached to a pole. That camera does capture license plates and also captures actions that occur with vehicles. This is important because so many of our shootings today are associated with vehicles. And this is part of the reason why we've increased our number of traffic stops, because we're trying as much as possible to get guns off the street. And so using probable cause to be able to effect the stop, and then attempting to get consent or find probable cause to get into the vehicle for a justifiable search is one of the reasons that we hope that this technology, along with our increased traffic stops, will allow us to safely take guns and wanted offenders off the street. We've also, part of flock technology is purchased gunshot detection. That gunshot detection at this time is being deployed 1 square mile in the Prentice Park section of the city. We also are looking at expanding that based on some additional funding to approximately 4 to 5 additional square miles within the city to cover some of our other higher crime areas. With this additional technology, we hope that this will give us a leg up to when gunshots are fired that will also not only notify us, but then also turn these existing cameras and the cameras that we're going to deploy in those areas on to hopefully capture the incident or vehicles fleeing from the area. You've seen through some of our sister cities on news interviews that they've had some very much success with the utilization of this technology. And frankly, I'm excited about what it's going to do for us and the potential it's going to give us for our officers to be able to capture some of these individuals and limit some of the dangers to citizens. Also, finally, what Ms. Lucas-Burke was talking about was Fuchsias.
Thank you.
Fuchsias is a totally separate entity, and it's part of our real-time crime center. Fuchsias, so Fuchsias is already here. This is what Fuchsias looks like for us. Fuchsias has the ability for officers to view it on their cell phones. They have the ability to view it in their mobile, in their MDCs within their vehicles. In particular areas that they are working in, they can pick those cameras that are in their areas or those high crime areas that they need to monitor to be able to get some additional eyes within that area. Also, the real-time crime center will be the place that all of those feeds are captured, and they will be monitored by employees that we are hiring and also volunteers. What you see, and we'll obviously, once everything is fully deployed, we will go through a more of an in-depth training with you so you'll have an understanding of how the technology works. But what you see is each one of those green dots or triangles represents a call for service, whether it be a barking dog call or a domestic assault. The officer has the ability to click on that particular call, and if that person has a cell phone, they can send them a link and they can actually have a conversation or see what's going on while that person is en route to that call. Again, a game changer, because the citizen has the ability to be able to not only live stream the incident, but maybe potentially send pictures of the assailant, pictures of a vehicle, anything, as law enforcement is en route to address the situation. This is an example of what our current cameras look like as of right now. That is how the system looks when you actually pull up cameras within the Fuchsia's cell. We continue to advance also with our P2C, our citizen online reporting system. This will be, we are in our final phases of that, and we expect it to be able to go live for us in the beginning of April, with some training to follow on that. So this for us is also one of those things that we know will ease the strain on our E911 system, because individuals do not have to call the police to make a report. They can go online to make a report for a stolen vehicle, or to retrieve an accident report, or to report a larceny from a building or something of that nature. This is something that we've been trying to get in place, unfortunately, since 2017. And so to actually be here at this point for me is in a happy moment, because unfortunately it's something we've talked about for years. Speed zone cameras and e-summons. We are in the process now of getting speed zone cameras along with red light cameras and e-ticketing. This is going to come before you, council, for your approval, because obviously there are fees that are associated with those that get passed on to the violator. And again, it's not a money-making initiative. It is truly a self-supportive system once it's in place. The e-summons itself allows the officer, one, to cut down the amount of time that they spend in writing an actual summons, and actually take the person's license, scan it, the summons prints out, and they're allowed to pass that on to the individual. What that does is it allows the officer, it's a safer environment for the citizen, a safer environment for the officer, because it cuts down the amount of time that individual is pulled over on the side of the road, which decreases the amount of negative contact that the police officer and the citizen may have. It also gives the officer more time to be able to do those proactive things that we want them to do within our community while addressing violations that they see while en route to different parts of the city. We're in the phase when it comes to the speed zone and red light cameras of looking for cooperative language, so that we can get this technology on board. We've met with the school board as recently as 2 weeks ago to get their opinion on what their thoughts and how that worked. And I can say we had a very favorable meeting in that, so I'm looking forward to that coming on. We continue our initiative with our blink cameras to citizens. There was some additional funding that was added to that. So again, we encourage citizens, if you do not have a doorbell camera and would like one, please enter into the raffle, and we will, obviously we're drawing names out at random. One thing I must tell you is you must have Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, a lot of people sign up and they don't have Wi-Fi. You must have Wi-Fi. Our business and citizen camera registry, part of this is going to be part of Fuchsia's as well. I'll go back a little bit. So the gray dots that you see, they all represent cameras that are within the community. So if you click on one of those cameras, that camera can either be a business, it can be a city-owned camera, or it can say, hey, this is Mrs. Jones' camera. She's letting us know that she has a camera, and that if something happened, here is her contact information to reach out to her and say, hey, ma'am, we're the police department. We're looking for camera information. If you have it and are willing to share it with us, please upload it to this link. Again, it's a purely voluntary system. You do not have to give us the information, but obviously in the effort to stop and reduce crime, we very much would appreciate it. Global Shield, something new that we signed up for. It's a law enforcement and intelligence agency from around the world where they share information and intelligence along with private sector partners. We've recently signed up with this. It's a free service within the last month, and so we're hopeful that this will continue to give us additional information about crime trends that are happening in other places across the country so that we can continue to educate our public on things that are happening. Finally, we've upgraded our Axon package. So this is important because our Axon package controls our body cam, part of our body cam package, which allows our officers, allows transparency within the community with not only keeping the officers safe, but also keeping the citizens safe. We're upgrading our vehicle cameras to also capture LPR, which they'll be license plate readers. So again, this is additional technology that is being rolled out to the city of Portsmouth. Along with that, we're upgrading our tasers, again, giving us another tool other than a lethal means to be able to bring a volatile situation to a happy and happy end without anyone getting hurt. Also, in addition to that, we're deploying technologies for our holsters so that every time an officer pulls his weapon, that body cam turns on automatically. Again, this is for us to be transparent in what we do. Not only does it, the effort is not only to be safe for the officer, but safe for the citizen. Ultimately, our goal is not to hide anything, but to see exactly what happened so that we can make good decisions when it comes to not only addressing complaints, but also looking for policies that need to be changed or training that we need to continue with. Now, what I'm about to talk about now is your police department. You know, I hear a lot about what we're not doing. Right now, I want to thump my chest to what we are doing, because your police department is out there every single day and they're working. Deficit, tired, afraid to do their job, they're working. In a city that is dealing with crime like we are, we as a city must be tough on crime, but have compassion and empathy to deal with the community. We're working to establish ourselves today more as guardians rather than warriors. And we're trying to do that from within the community. But please understand that individuals that commit violent acts within this city need to be addressed properly. I'm going to highlight the last month of some of the violent incidents that have happened that we've been successfully able to bring to fruition. I'll start with the homicide on LaSalle Avenue, and I won't read this. But unfortunately, we had a young man, again, lose his life as a result of an argument over a female. The individual was arrested here recently and now is currently, I believe, in custody. I encourage you, please, to follow the case through the court system. Next, I highlight a short-term narcotics investigation that was conducted in the Prentice Park section of the city and occurred on Staunton Avenue. These 6 individuals were associated with distribution of several ounces of cocaine, fentanyl, crack cocaine, and 2 firearms were recovered. Ironically, every single one of those individuals was bonded out within the next 5 hours. This The next one that I highlight has gotten a lot of traction for some reason. And I'm sorry, it's not that one. My apologies. This next one occurred on Dale Drive, and again, we currently have 2 warrants out for those individuals, and this is associated with a robbery attempt of 2 individuals that started in another city, and they were brought here to our city where this homicide occurred. The pop-up marijuana market. I've heard lots and lots about this one. Why is the Portsmouth Police Department concerned about marijuana? Marijuana doesn't hurt anybody. Well, first and foremost, let me be clear. Marijuana, the sale of marijuana in the state of Virginia is still illegal. And so, therefore, understand, we must address it as it is. It is purely a legislative issue that needs to be addressed. But until that is, we as a police department will do our part to address it. These individuals had set up shop and were causing quite a ruckus within the Old Town area. And we went to address this situation where we were met by security guards who denied our entrance. At that point, the building was frozen, a search warrant was obtained, and we confiscated over 100 pounds of marijuana, 13 firearms, and a bunch of other stuff. In total, we're talking about close to $200,000 worth of marijuana. Now, again, part of the conversation is, why are y'all concerned about marijuana? Well, I will tell you that if you remember, I just told you earlier, our last homicide that we had involved marijuana. There was a security officer that was killed off Vic Street at a pop-up shop that involved marijuana. So again, it is imperative for us as a police department to be as concerned about this as any other thing, because eventually they become places where people come to target because of the amount of drugs and money associated with it. So that is the reason we are concerned about it. The next one was a search warrant that we executed on Woodstock. Multiple arrests were made at this particular location. Fentanyl, 2 pounds of marijuana, and a handgun were recovered there as well. Now, one of the things that I need to highlight to you that some people don't know is not only are they mixing fentanyl and cocaine, but they're also mixing fentanyl and marijuana. Ironically, this particular location on Woodstock, this is the second time within 2 years that we've conducted narcotics investigation on that same residence. So this continues to be an issue. So going forward, we're going to address that that particular dwelling through our neighborhood blight situation and see if we can't bring that to some type of resolve. The next one was an arrest for an individual. This occurred on March 17th for obstruction of justice and narcotics violation. What's important here is this individual we recovered 2 ounces of cocaine and fentanyl mix and 2 firearms. This individual was already on bond for a previous drug charge that took place February 23rd of 22. March 17th, we had our fugitive apprehension unit spotted a vehicle that was recently involved in a double shooting. That vehicle was occupied by 3 juveniles. Those juveniles, after a short vehicle pursuit, were taken into custody. What's important to know is that inside that vehicle were recovered 2 handguns, an AR pistol loaded with 60 rounds of ammunition, and additionally, they had a Glock that was modified to what they call a switch that now makes it into a high-powered rifle, high-powered firing handgun. These are the things that the men and women of Portsmouth Police Department face every single day. And they're out there working hard, trying to make a difference. Please understand that as a police department, we cannot do this alone. I've asked and I've said and I'll continue to say that it's going to take a concerted effort from everyone to address this issue. Things that we're dealing with today as a city, as a country, and as a police department are unprecedented. Just as the community is dealing with mental health, I'm dealing with mental health issues within the department. And Superman doesn't get sick. So what do you do now when the individuals that you charge with protecting you are dealing with their own issues? We as a police department not only need your help, but we need your support. And we need you to understand that we're trying. We're going to continue to try every single day. When we get it wrong, I'm responsible. When we get it right, the men and women of the Portsmouth Police Department did an outstanding job, as they do every single day. If we want a safe environment, public safety needs to be the first priority. You cannot have safe schools without public safety. You cannot have a safe environment. You cannot have a safe shopping experience without public safety. I'll take any questions.
Councilman Tillett, sir, you have the floor. Then Dr. Whitaker, sir, you are next.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, from my standpoint, I don't want anybody to ever believe that this is a city council versus police department situation. I take my hat off every day to the men and women in uniform who do this job effortlessly, who do it, because it's their passion, and they do it very well. It was mentioned that no one's psychic, and no one in this room is psychic, but we have the ability to be proactive. We also have the ability to make policy. You may mention that policy plays a factor into this. And so as a council, our job is to help to bring about change that is needed. It is be able to create policy, to revise policy as needed. If there's some policy that needs to be addressed, I would love to see that come before council. I would love for us to be able to have these kind of conversations to talk about what needs to be addressed. Now we're approaching the end of the first quarter, and this is my first time having this conversation. But we have a lot of issues that need to be addressed from a policy standpoint, because a lot of this stuff is systematic, as you made mention to. But how do we have those conversations to get these things going? This is the body to do that. Also, in regards to a lot of what's going on, you may mention too, is mental health. Mental health is real. It's a serious situation. There's ways in which that we can collaborate, and so a lot of my questions I have are regarding how are we collaborating with our social services department, how are we collaborating with our behavioral health department to be able to address a lot of these mental needs in the community, but then also for, as you mentioned, the police and the staff that serve in the police department, so that everybody is able to give their best. And if you're not well mentally, you can't give your 100%. And so I would like to see ways in which we're not only addressing mental health from a citizen's perspective, but also from internal for our officers and staff as well, because I'm sure a lot of these phone calls, a lot of these situations that they're arriving to, I'm sure it plays with your mind, without a doubt. Also, human services, you may mention to poverty. Council, we have ways in which, and that also goes back to a policy thing, to be able to have policy presented to us to be able to speak about what needs to be done. Our police department should be working in uniform with our social services department, with our behavioral health care department, it should just be it should be almost like a vertical integration here, where every department is talking to departments to be able to find solutions, to be able to work together and come before council to get these things addressed. Now, in regards to, the technology, you made mention that a lot, a lot of these things were up for grants, or there needed to be money put aside to them. I'm really looking forward to seeing some good budget items come before us for budget season this year. Because a lot of these, as you may mention, public safety is a top concern, I think, of everybody on this dais. And so please bring us budget items. If you need cameras put on corners, or you need X, Y, and Z for staff recruitment, I mean, those are things that I would like to know about so that we can make sure that we plan for those things. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops with city council. We should take full responsibility for lack of safety. We should take full responsibility for police officers not wanting to stay and not being able to recruit. We set the tone as a city council. And one of my biggest pet peeves is that for so long, it seems as if things have just been lackadaisical. And that's not coming from a staff perspective, because the staff, you all give your all every single day. But we have got to set a tone in this city that Portsmouth is not the place for foolishness. And until we set that tone, we're going to continue to see a dysfunction amongst the community, a dysfunction amongst departments, and continue to see the lack of support that you all are not receiving. And so we need to set those tones. And so I would hope that this council will take full responsibility in addressing these needs. Now, the mental health and the human services, of course, that's something that we just can't fix overnight. And crime in general, we can't fix overnight, but there's things in which that we can address things to get the ball rolling. Because far too long, crime has just been a huge problem. Now, you made mention in regards to recruitment. And I see that, you may mention to different incentives for like referrals, $1,000. Are we currently offering any sign-on bonuses?
Yes, sir. We have a $1,500 sign-on bonus.
Okay. Now, have we partnered with any higher ed institutions?
Yes, sir. So we have a partnership with Liberty University, where officers can get up to 40% off towards education. There's also incentives through the Fraternal Order of Police where they can get education for free. And the FOP is actually paying for it. All of these things we're utilizing as tools to attract individuals to our ranks. Obviously, the most important thing with attracting people is maintaining what you have. So we're working along those lines we've already started developing a robust mental health program to include peer support, where we partner with VA LEAP to come down and train a number of our officers to be peer counselors. In addition to that, we've just finished implementing a brand new gym, something we've never had within this police department. And we've just received equipment within the last week. And again, this is a tool that we're going to utilize to encourage officers not only to become more physically fit, but also take the time to address those issues and get that anguish out that they sometimes don't have the individual or person to talk to about it. So we're taking the steps to be able to offer our police officers the ability to be able to take some time to decompress, to do those things. But I have to be honest, when you're running at the level where we are right now and having to cover because there's lack of shifts and things of that nature, all of that is stressful. And so we're doing as best we can to mitigate through that as well.
Most definitely. My next question is regarding, we're still on recruitment, but a training academy.
Yes, sir.
Does Portsmouth currently have its own training academy?
No, sir.
Do you think that having its own training academy would be beneficial to the recruitment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not only would it be beneficial to recruitment, but I believe in the end you would get a better quality police officer that understands what the expectations of what it takes to work in this city.
Most definitely. Thank you. Next, in regards to, you made mention that a lot of the homicides this year have not been gang-related.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what percentage of the homicides currently are gang-related?
So of the 14 incidents that I talked about, we have 2 that we can point to that we have a potential gang nexus to.
Okay. All right. And then as far as preventive measures, have we looked at creating precincts or substations in different neighborhoods where high crime has been an issue, to increase police presence in those areas. Because I understand the purpose of reset walks, but I think as a citizenry, we've become numb to reset walks. And so it seems like the only time police now show up, and this is not me criticizing, but people are seeing officers when somebody's been shot already. And so have we looked at creating substations or precincts in these areas so that there are high visibility of police officers in these areas? What costs would be associated with doing so? And then also response times. You know, we made mention to a lot of this wonderful technology that we are trying to implement, but technology is only as effective as to our response to it. And so do we have and this is probably a conversation we have offline or in another forum, but what does that response strategy look like? Because as you've heard from the previous conversation, response is a huge problem. And it's basically showing if somebody answers the phone, if somebody arrives in a timely manner. In regards to the situation that Councilman Moody mentioned with the fight that happened last week, the assault, it was like a 20-minute response time. And I know that to be true because I was walking down the street as it happened. And so it was 20 minutes before a police officer got there, and it was right next door to where the police are housed at. And so that was very alarming.
So if I can correct you on that, sir, the security officer that was downstairs was actually the first on scene.
Yes.
And he actually was the one that was instrumental in getting the information that was associated with capturing that individual and for us to be able to put him in jail.
That's true, and that's very true, and that was probably with about the 15-minute mark, but that is true.
Yeah. So understand, for response times, I need police officers. Plain and simple. I need police officers. And I need the ability to have police officers that are comfortable with working in this city. It's plain and simple. And that's a bigger issue than maybe some of you even on council understand. And it's not all about money. Okay? The other part of when we asked your question about precincts, we have one individual that's actually donating a space for us in the shopping center at Victory and George Washington. Again, because he's offering presence. Years ago, we used to have need offices that were associated within the community. We've since gotten away from those. We're looking for opportunities for that. Again, as we deal with addressing some of these repetitive houses that are criminal blight, that may be an option for us to explore along with the city attorney to see if that is something that we have the ability to not only address but turn into something that potentially could be something that could be a benefit to the police department. Rivers Casino is also in the process of building us a substation that's going to be adjacent, attached to their building. So again, we have explored that possibility, but even with substations, you have to have officers that are going to be there, in there, to be able to respond.
And my last question, Mayor, is regarding what is our current partnership? What does that currently look like with our sheriff's department?
So I talked to the sheriff, and so, but let me be clear: the police department and the sheriff department are not the same. We have different responsibilities. The sheriff's department has been very gracious enough to take over the schools based on our numbers, but understand the training is different and the responsibilities are different. They are responsible for civil process, for court security, and for the jail. They have individuals that are law enforcement certified, that they allow to do things within the street, but they also have the ability to pick and choose what they get involved in. I don't have that luxury, sir. When the phone rings and when we have an officer available to respond, I must go.
So do we currently utilize the sheriff deputies that are licensed or trained to do the law enforcement aspect? Are we utilizing those individuals to assist?
We utilize them when they have officers or deputies available. They have staffing challenges that they must address as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, Chief Jenkins, thank you for your service as well as the men and women that work in your department. You said something at the beginning of your presentation that I think is really the main issue, and it's not really a question to you because I know you are very conscious of this. What we're seeing happening today, as you said a few minutes ago, you said that this is some unique times and situations. However, really it's not all that unique. And it's because of what you said at the beginning, which I think we tend not to want to deal with, not only here in Portsmouth, but across the country. And that is, I appreciate at the beginning your candid nature and transparency. That is, you said that the issues we're seeing are the result of neglect, poverty, you said poor schools, and I think in parentheses we need to say underfunded schools. But something that has been left out is that we're also dealing with these issues from a historical basis, because neglect, poverty, and underfunded schools didn't just start in 2023. I come from Portsmouth. I'm out of Cavalier Manor. I remember when the ditch was in the middle of Greenwood Drive and Cavalier Boulevard. I know that there has never been a true commitment in this city to providing for quality education for African Americans and poor whites. I know that's the case. And there's no need of trying to dress and skate around the issue. Also, when you start talking about crime, what I'm hearing from you, and this isn't the first time we've heard it, you are giving us responses to crime. We're not dealing with the root cause of crime. And until we deal with the root causes of crime, then we're just sounding brass and tingling cymbals. And that's what I'm interested in dealing with. As a council member, as Mr. Tillage mentioned, we set policy. And it's not like we don't know what the policy should be. It's just a matter of, are we going to have the moral courage to do it? We'll get ready to decide how we're going to fund our schools this budget season. Okay? I heard you mention that's one of the causes, which we know that our schools, if they are not properly funded, that leads to persons who are now not adequately trained, which leads to generational issues. And so the issue becomes, because I'm hearing citizens come up here telling us that we don't need to put money into schools. We've put too much in it, even though the state has cut out millions of dollars. And when you start talking about that in a city that has the high poverty level, it should not be a surprise what we're seeing happening. And so it's not unique. And until we decide to address these root causes, and then on top of that, what you left out is that we're not even talking about the income disparities, the wealth disparities. Okay? You're not even dealing with that issue. Okay? And so until we address these, and that's why as a council person, when I came up here, my main mission was to fund education, and it still is that. And then you hear me raising minority contracting, because we know that black businesses hire black folks. We have law firms in this city, around the region, that get tax dollars from this city that do not have black lawyers, but our black law firms do. Our black businesses do. And when I look at this list of people who have committed murders and crimes, and I'm seeing that opportunities that have been denied, I'm seeing living wages not being paid, and then we wonder why these things are happening. And so it's not, Chief, you're just responding to crime. The very institution of policing wasn't even created to address the issues that we're facing today. And so I'm interested to see this council that the citizens put up here. What policies will this council pass that will address our school funding, that will address poverty, that will address living wages? And will we have the courage, or will business continue as usual? Because if it continues as usual, I don't care how many cameras, I don't care how many police you have, the crime will continue to perpetuate until we get to the root causes. And that's what we need to be challenging our council, to pass policies that address the root causes. I'm tired of coming to these type of presentations just to make everybody feel like something's going on, okay? Not saying you're not doing your job, but see, what this council, what they'll do is check off a box that we gave a presentation, but you didn't deal with the root causes. But see, when I raise issues of race, then I become a racist, okay? But I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. The neglect that you're talking about is intentional. And like you said, it's by design. We're trying to decide now, are we going to indict a president, a former president who was a crook? But then we come to these little poor brown and black boys and girls, and we will arrest them.
This is hell.
Okay? But I'm saying that we have to address the root causes and stop trying to put this window dressing on it. And then we target certain communities, because we've already seen what this war on crime does. Target certain communities. Okay? We need to deal with the root causes. And Chief, I appreciate you bringing that up at the beginning, and I hope the citizens heard you, and I hope that they will hear, and I hope our council will respond and not just continue the status quo, business as usual. Thank you, Chief.
Councilman Hugo, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chief Jenkins, thanks for your honest assessment of what's going on. You and I spent a few evenings together at Civic League meetings, and I've seen a lot of what you presented tonight, presented to Civic League meetings. I'm not here to check a box. I'm not here for window dressing. I'm here because I felt you needed the opportunity to present this in front of all of Portsmouth, not just one Civic League at a time. And so I appreciate what you shared with all of us this evening, and I think it's important for everyone to know the things that you and your team are doing, and I really appreciate your leadership. Even though it's clear that you are understaffed, I've never heard you use that as an excuse. You've always owned this as the head of the police department, and so it takes courage to own it with some of the challenges that you're faced with today. There are some things that you covered that I'm pleased that you covered. I'm pleased that you walked through the homicides that have occurred so far and helped us all understand some of what's going on, because there is this misconception, I think, what's the underlying cause of what's going on in our violent crime. Yes, you spoke to the symptom and not necessarily the root cause. We do have some root causes that we collectively have to address. It's not just City Council that's got to address it. It's not just the police department that's got to address it. And so it's important that you're out there at Civic Leagues talking to folks so that the Civic Leagues understand that they have a role to play. It's important that we communicate to our clergy that they have a role to play. We're all in this together. We're all suffering this disease of violent crime, and it's going to take all of us working together to pull us out of it. And so I appreciate your leadership in that regard as well. I've heard you say at Civic League meetings that a fair amount of our violent crime is being perpetrated by non-Portsmouth people. Could you share with folks at least your sense of how much of what you're seeing based on the arrests that you're making or the suspects that you have our non-Portsmouth folks that are coming to Portsmouth to do their dirty work?
Yes, sir. So the bus that we had at the pop-up shop on High Street, there were 41 individuals that were located inside of that establishment. Of those 41 people, there were only 2 people from Portsmouth that were there. There were people in there from as far as Florida and Georgia to Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, that had come to Portsmouth to set up shop and sell marijuana. Crime has no boundaries. And unfortunately, fortunately, I have a good relationship with the chiefs in this area, and we talk quite frankly about strategies, and again, part of this with the technology of us linking together with hopefully being able to capture some of the individuals associated with the crime. The other parts of that is understanding who these individuals are and what their tie is to Portsmouth. As Councilman Tillage said, we have to do a better job of letting people know that Portsmouth is not the place to come and do crime. And that is my standpoint at this point. Unfortunately, as the police chief, with all of the underlying issues that are at hand, I have no ability to address poverty. I have no ability to address the schools. The police department, unfortunately, was designed to be a hammer. There are other aspects of what we do that are necessary. We partner very much with our mental health providers through social services, through Department of Behavioral Health, Maryview, and also the fire department most recently developed a team that is comprised of a medical staff individual and also a medical personnel that will be first responders of sort to address mental health. And this is all in preparation of the Marcus Alert that will be coming on in a few years that is mandated by the state. And forgive me, I went off from your question, my apologies. But that was the main reason, sir.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned that the pop-up pot drug bust has gotten a fair amount of notoriety and drawn you into a lot of conversations. It has me too. Folks have been calling me, emailing me since then to let me know that they know of other locations around the city where stuff like that's going on. You and I had some discussion about that. I guess given kind of the outcome of the arrest of the 41 folks from that pop-up party on High Street, we got to find a different way to get after folks. I certainly agree with you and with Councilman Tillage. We got to send the message that we don't want that stuff going on in our city. And whether it's homicide or whether it's pop-up pot parties, which are in some ways kind of the predecessor activities to the more violent crimes, we got to find a way to send a message. And so we certainly want to work with you on that to figure out what we can do policy-wise to help you, to equip you and your team to continue pursuing that kind of activity and chase it right on out of the city. I certainly agree with Councilman Whitaker that there are responsibilities that you don't own but that we do own, and so it's going to be up to us to step into those things. Poverty and schools and the things that you mentioned right from the very beginning, I think all go back to creating hope amongst our kids, amongst our citizens, that Portsmouth is a place where they can lift themselves up out of those conditions, but we got to find ways to help them. You mentioned that we don't have a police academy and that we're using a regional police academy. In my experience with regional things, everybody goes into the pot, and sometimes the folks that you send there might get lured away. Is that what you're experiencing? Some of the candidates that we send into the regional thing talk to their Virginia Beach and Chesapeake cohorts and get lured into taking a job with a different force?
Yes, sir. So we are currently we are the largest police department still in the Hampton Roads Regional Academy. Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Newport News, and Hampton all have their own police academies. Suffolk and us are the only ones that remain that are police departments. And within that hodgepodge, I guess you would call it, of individuals that are put together for training, there is very much recruiting that happens. Again, you must remember Portsmouth is a difficult city. And so why wouldn't you consider going somewhere else where they might pay you a little more and you do less work? Or have the ability to get a take-home car from day one. And so those things, unfortunately, are things that we deal with. But we also deal with the fact that we don't have an opportunity to fully train our people in Portsmouth in the way that we expect our officers to interact with our citizens. What they're getting is a generic form of law enforcement, and then we have to train additionally how to work in an urban environment when you're dealing with a person that may be working in a rural county or something of that nature. Remember, policing is very different in other jurisdictions, other cities. So again, a academy of our own, it is my belief that we would get a better quality officer that would serve this city well.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we can recruit our way out of the shortage of police officers if we attrite experienced police officers along the way. How many police officers have you lost over the past year through attrition, non-retirement attrition?
I would have to be accurate, I would have to do a little research, but I would probably say between 10 to 15.
And would you say it was because of money or an easier job someplace else than the challenges here in Portsmouth? How would you characterize the reasons behind the attrition?
A little bit of all. Some of it was for better pay and less work. Some of it was also people just leaving the profession. As a state, we've lost about 3,000 plus police officers across the state of Virginia as a result of our summer of discourse and protests and also public sentiment and again fear out of not necessarily wanting to be the next YouTube star. So there are a lot of challenges that we have with not only attracting but retaining individuals to be able to come and serve in our ranks and then operate in the manner in which we all expect them to.
So in my world, a lot of times attrition is attributed to a bad boss or poor leadership. I've walked enough reset walks with your folks to know that the camaraderie amongst your team is outstanding, and so I think again that kind of all is a reflection of the leadership that you're providing to the police department. You mentioned the mental health challenges that your folks are wrestling with. There's been a lot of discussion about putting a mental health professional in the squad car with a police officer to go respond to calls. Are there resources like that you wished you had and you don't have them?
So yeah, that would help us to be able to have a medical professional that an individual could talk to. But one of the things we have had a lot of success with until we can get something like that set up is that we have some very dedicated chaplains that volunteer their time, and they ride with our officers voluntarily day and night to be able to have those in-depth conversations that sometimes we don't want to talk about. You have to understand that professional law enforcement, for whatever reason, again, as I said, there's a lot of bravado and macho and things of that nature, but you know, I think we're addressing some of those issues better today, but we've got a long way to go because, again, it's still a systemic part of the way people are viewed when you say, my head's not there. That's not supposed to happen to Superman.
Yeah. So I appreciate the work that the chaplains do. I've seen them on the reset walks as well, and it's important that they're there providing their support. So I promised you I was going to ask this question. I'll do this as my last question to get off the stage. It's budget season. I know you and the city manager have been working through your need list. In my experience, the Navy always had it an unfunded priority list, the things that didn't quite make the cut line, but that if there was some higher priority put on those things instead of something else that we have to choose from, we'd find the money. We're all saying that attacking this crime problem is either the highest priority or one of the highest priorities that City Council faces. So what are those unfunded priority things that didn't quite make the cut line that are at the top of your list that you think we ought to be considering in budget season when we sit down with the city manager?
Sir, I wrestled with that, coming up with a thought, with even being able to answer that properly. But I'm going to just lay it out there. We need a police department. Right now, we're scattered about the city in half buildings that are retrofitted warehouses and sports museums and you name it, and the way to call the police department. You want to know something that affects morale? You want to know something that's hard to attract a person to come and want to be a part of something when they see your facilities are less than adequate? When the vehicles that you drive don't match and you look like when you pull up to a location and you look like you're from 5 different police departments? Those things matter. And those things for us, police department is paramount. Public safety building, if you may, is paramount for us to be able to go into and finally have a place to call home. And I'm not talking about retrofitting a 60 or 70-year-old building to try to make it work for something today. I'm talking about a brand new structure that will allow us to put all of our apparatuses, our patrol cars, our fitness facilities, our training facilities, and again, we will start to retain and attract people to be able to say, Portsmouth now starting to do something, and I want to go and be a part of that. I promised my folks that we would be the best police department in the state of Virginia. And I believe that, and I'm going to do my part while I'm here to do that. We need a police department, sir.
All right, thanks, Chief Jenkins. I appreciate your candor.
Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor. Bill, Councilman Moody, I'm sorry. No, then you have the floor, sir. I'm sorry.
I promise that won't be long. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief Jenkins, for the presentation. I thank you for the citizens who are here tonight. Just hearing this information one time isn't enough for all of us. I mean, I get jumped on because I asked the question, but you hear it one time, I can hear it 3 more times, and I still won't be an expert on what you're giving us. So I appreciate you coming out with the information. What I'm hearing is from the pie chart that we not only need to educate our youth, we need to educate our adults as well. And you said that, how can you say it 100 times, that unlocked vehicles with guns in them a problem. They say, get the guns off the street, get the ghost guns off the street, stop selling to youth. You know, that's not the problem. You know, if they can still go in somebody's car who has a gun and just pick it up out of there, they don't have to worry about buying one from anywhere, because it's easy access if you're going to leave it in your car and leave it unlocked. So it seems like we need some education with our adults as well. I hear you loud and clear about the sworn officers, 88 sworn vacancies that we have, but as the liaison to the Hampton Roads Regional Jail, what we found that this problem is secular, and we're struggling to get deputies to work in the Hampton Roads Regional Jail as well. When one city, one locality raised the rate or the salary for police officers, the other cities who outwage us and out-revenue us raise theirs the next day. So we will never be on top, because they say that as soon as we raise ours, they're going to come behind us and raise theirs. So I don't know, how we're going to meet this 88 sworn vacancies if we're going to, in reality, ever get to that point. So this is something that's nationwide. It's not just Portsmouth. It's everywhere. I would hope that this council, we're having a retreat next month, that we would keep public safety at the forefront and continue the conversation. And I think we need to add in the step pay, what we'd spoken about a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, something that incentivizes our officers to want to stay. And I applaud the ones who have been here. I see them when I'm in the community. I see them when I'm at the grocery store. I see them when I'm at the casino. And I appreciate the extra work that they're given all across our city to keep us going. And I applaud you for being the responsible head of the team for when anything goes wrong, and even when it goes right, you're the one that we can count on. So we're here with you, in partnership with you, with our team here. We want to do whatever it is that we can do to get it right. We don't have all of the solutions, but this conversation helps us to move in the right direction. So I applaud my council members who thought worthy to have this presentation today, because I know that you're going to present on March 30th for the crime over at IC Norcom, but I don't think we would have got as much as we got during that citizen empowerment forum session. So I appreciate this information tonight, and I hope our citizens do as well. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Chief, thank you. Terrific presentation. I think what you say, you got the choir up here. We have your back, your men and women of the police department's back. But, and you mentioned it earlier, that some of the drug dealers that your people apprehended, they were bonded out. So, in my way of thinking, to prevent criminals from doing the bad things, I think deterrents are really a piece of that. The fear of going to jail, the fear of going to prison, that's real. And I think if your people don't have the backing of the judicial piece, we're on just a vicious cycle where you apprehend them, then you see them back out on the street. What, you only mentioned one case, are you seeing that happen?
So, sir, obviously the justice system is a four-part process. Law enforcement being first, magistrate system, followed by Commonwealth attorney, and then the judges. And so when any one of those parts fails, obviously the justice system as a whole fails. The Commonwealth attorney has no control over bond or things of that nature. The judges and also the magistrates make the bond in that aspect. Obviously, we're going to do our part, and our part is to get out and hold those individuals accountable for the actions that they do within our city. And we're committed to doing that with whatever we have available for us to do. We will, at that point, turn over that process to those others, and with the watchful eye, encouraging the process to go forward. I can tell you that we continue to dialogue and have good dialogue on ways we can try to improve what we do. I have an up-and-coming meeting with the judges to get some opinions on how we can improve as a police department, to have better prosecution of cases. Again, I have to look at it from my standpoint. I can only control it from my vantage point, and to ensure that we are turning out the best cases for prosecution, whether they go state or federal. And we also looking at federal, the federal nexus as well in lieu of state prosecution when that's necessary. But again, we're committed to doing what we can do to ensure that the streets, that we're holding individuals accountable.
Very good. Also, our auxiliary police officers.
Yes.
Is that still a viable force, and does it help you augment the shortage of regular police officers?
Our auxiliary police officer force for years was a staple hole within the organization.
Right.
With helping. Right now, we've dwindled in numbers, partly from people relocating for military obligations and retiring out. And because the fact that we don't have our own academy, we've not been able to send anyone. There's not been anyone that's held an academy. We have quite a few, at least 6 or 7 individuals who are looking to volunteer their time and be police officers in between their jobs. Right now, we have about 4 or 5 dedicated individuals who some put in 40 hours a week or better, just volunteering to help community keep them safe. So I applaud them in their actions. I started out as an auxiliary police officer. So, you know, it takes a special person to do this for free.
How many do we have now?
I would say estimate about 6 is about what we have. We started out probably well over 20 when I first came.
Yeah. Also, what does it take to, you know, a lot of times to retain an employee, sometimes it's the little things. What does it take, and what is our policy on take-home cars?
So we right now we still maintain one of the more liberal take-home policies of the 7 cities. If we have available vehicles, we assign them out to individuals to allow them to take them home, in particular the ones that live within the city for that increased presence in the community. So we've maintained that for a number of years. Obviously, from time to time, we run into situations with vehicles, whether they mechanical issues from incidents involving accidents, and so sometimes those resources become a little scarce. Right now, we're waiting to receive 30 additional new vehicles that have already been placed on order, and so we're hoping that we'll start to see some of those vehicles start to make their way here, and we can start again expanding our program with that.
And it was mentioned about, you may have mentioned it, that, you know, we see blue and white cars, we see white cars, we see black vehicles. What is it taking? Are we phasing those cars out, or are they too old to repaint or to rewrap? What's the problem?
So I've explored the possibility of my plan with Ms. Terry on how we address it for a minimal cost. Obviously, we're not looking to, some of those vehicles are still new and sound enough for us to maintain within our fleet. So my proposal at this point is to strip all of those ones that are white and just go with black lettering. And so we'll end up with only 2 cars at that point, a black and white, and then a white and black. And then that will at least bring a little bit more uniformity into our police fleet. And so we're looking at ways right now how to get that taken care of.
Okay, that seems like a Band-Aid approach.
So and I will tell you, that's exactly what it is. But I also will
Yes.
tell you, there's a bigger picture associated with that. There are not very many individuals today that make police cars. Ford only makes the Explorer, and Dodge makes the Charger and a Durango, and then your options go very limited. And so when you have multiple agencies vying for the same vehicle, it makes it very hard to be able to obtain these resources. Last year, Sheehy Ford canceled a number of vehicles that were already bought and paid for by localities, and basically said, here's your new invoice with an increased price tag, which again creates an issue. So we're all vying for the same resources, and we talk about shortages in chips and shortages and things that in order to make vehicles, that makes us have to do more with less and hold on to things a little bit longer, in particular our vehicles right now. But we are working to address that issue.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I'm so happy that you are our chief. So first of all, do you guys still do the Citizen Police Academy?
Yes, sir. We still do. We actually are in planning phases for a Citizens Academy coming up, and obviously I encourage all citizens to come out and take advantage of it, get to know the inner workings of the police department. It is your police department, and what better way to understand the way that we do things than to actually come out. If you don't have an opportunity to be or to attend a Citizens Academy, come out and do a ride along. Get to see it from the perspective of some of your police officers and have a conversation with them. Again, this is your department, and we welcome you to come and watch us work.
Last question, Chief. How long have you been a police officer in the city of Portsmouth?
October will be officially 20 years I will have been here. I came in 2002 as an auxiliary, but that time doesn't count.
So Mr. Moody's been on council as long as you've been the police in the police department, which is a good thing. I only say that because I think it's a good thing. But what I want to say to that is I appreciate your commitment, and I want to offer you and your police department encouragement. We are here to help. We appreciate the information that you gave us tonight. We appreciate the work that you and your officers do on a daily basis. I can remember a couple of weeks ago, you and I got summoned to a Civic League meeting because of a disturbance in the community. And we got summoned on a Sunday night, and the meeting was Monday, I believe. And I recall how you took very careful time to explain everything that was going on, and you helped the community to understand the situation. Thank you, sir. Yes. Thank you and your team, and we will continue to support our manager and support you and the police officers in the job that you do each and every day.
Thank you.
That concludes our meeting, special call meeting for this evening. Having no other business to conduct, this meeting is adjourned.